Hello again, everybody. A new day, a new moment. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about um, just a period when I was growing up, which was a tough period, and luckily I got through it. But I tell you what, I'm lucky to have gotten through it actually. Um, After the divorce of my parents, we moved with my mom away from the home that my dad had built us, along with his brother, my uncle Neil, and that's another story too. My uncle Neil and my grandpa, and we'd had 5 acres of land my dad had inherited, and we built a really nice house there. Um, I was very much involved in the build. I was young, but I was very much involved in the build because all the small places, this kind of stuff, needed to get into to paint or to attach something. I could do it, But yeah, it was a good house, and my parents divorced. Um, my mother decided that she needed something else, and we moved with my mom into first my grandparents' house in Tioga, Louisiana, and we lived there some months, and then my mom was working at the hospital. She was a nurse, and then we moved into a with my aunt and uncle, my aunt Marletta and my uncle Joe when they were married, and they had 3 sons, Joy, Richard, and Jason, and it was cramped. It was it was a house made for a family of 4, actually, and suddenly it had 2 families in it, and of 7, and no 8, excuse me, of 8, and I started. We weren't very far. We were about like maybe a half a mile, maybe from maybe less from the junior high, and I I would walk into school every day to junior high, and I wasn't my cousin. He was still, I think he was still in elementary school, and although I believe it was there also, but we used to walk into school together, and then I met some friends from around the neighborhood. One was a guy named Vic, and that's where I first saw a computer game. I played I think it was a Commodore 64 he had or something like that. And but something else he had. His father had a bar, and he had lots of alcohol. So here I was, a junior high kid, super depressed, going into a school that I just sat in classes, and this is when they first started integration. They were busing in kids from the inner city, and although I don't agree with the segregation in the first place, but the way they did it was just terrible. I mean, these kids had to come in from far away every day to school and then bus right back to where it just wasn't fair to them actually. But something else they brought with them was a lot of violence. I mean, we already had a bunch of it was already tough enough, but it brought a lot of violence with it. And so I'd gotten into a serious fight one day with a kid in my class. It wasn't even anything. It was just talking, and suddenly he took offense, became smack talk, whatever. Next thing I know, I was basically manhandled outside, thrown in a ring of kids, and we fought. Luckily, for myself, is that I knew how to fight a little bit, and I put him down, and then. But we both ended up in front of the principal's office, in the principal's office, actually, the vice president, principal. We spent like 2 hours in there, just together, he and I. But you know what? We became friends. And from then on out, we were friends, actually, no problems or anything. And I never had any more problems in the entire school. But that walk into school every day, I mean, I couldn't concentrate on school. I just couldn't. So what I'd do every morning, I'd go over to Vic's house and drink whatever, and then just get blitzed, and then walk into school, and then come home. I think my grades were the worst ever in that semester. It wasn't my aunt and uncle's fault. They really did their best, to accommodate us. My mom just basically abandoned us with them, and that was pretty sad. But one thing good did come out of all this, and that is my dad stepped up and came to help. And he brought us back into the fold, the family. We did have to move. What happened, we were moving, every weekend we were visiting, this pretty much. He'd come and see us and drive us out to Montgomery where he was living. He had moved to Montgomery, Louisiana, and he I think at the very beginning, I'm not sure, but I think I think he had his own restaurant at that time already. No. He'd lost a restaurant before he and my mom separated. He had in Montgomery, because he had a restaurant in Montgomery, and the problem he had there was just people were stealing from him. His employees were stealing from him, and it just didn't. It's also a place. I mean, he always had plenty of clients, but he changed, the atmosphere changed. It went from a nice restaurant to a bar, but that's because clients were, people were stealing from him, his employees, and then he moved more and more towards a bar, and it just didn't work out. I think if he just stayed as a restaurant, I think it would have worked out really well. I think that place is still a restaurant today, actually, from a new owner. Yeah, he was working for a car dealership because he was a car salesman. This was between his military career, actually. It's about 9 years between his military career. After he was in the Vietnam War, was active duty, got out, and then went back again 9 years later. Anyway, he had this little small apartment. It was basically a studio with a kitchen off of it and a bathroom. It was someone's garage, and we stayed there on the weekends. He had put up cots for us, he slept on the cot, and my sister and brother slept in the bed, and I slept on the cot in the kitchen, and that's just basically how it was during that time. Boy, these two behind me. Remember I told you yesterday about cats, It was an experience, and I really liked growing. I liked the weekends we spent there, because with him, the weekends we spent with him were different than the weekends we spent with my mom, because we didn't see her. But at least we were seeing him. What we didn't know is that he had a dark side too. Well, we knew he had a dark side, but we didn't know how dark his side was. I mean, he was also suffering from depression, suffering from loneliness. But what did happen was that we decided that we're gonna at that summer we decided we're gonna move to Montgomery. I don't know if we really decided that. I think we all just sort of went there, and then we just never came back. Then my mom moved to more in the direction where she lives now, and with her then boyfriend. Well, no, she was alone, because we did spend some time with her there, but it just didn't work out. And during the summer, we would go and see her and that kind of stuff. But it just, she wouldn't even be there. She wouldn't be there. I mean, it was her day off. She'd leave us there, and then she would leave to go out, So it was just a tough time. I remember it very well, and I remember just how gray it felt and how dark it felt. But being in Montgomery was fantastic. We had a great life up there. I mean, my dad then found us a house just outside of town, walking distance. We walked everywhere basically, or rode our bicycle everywhere. We had bicycles with us, that kind of stuff. So we were always running on bicycles, and there was a group of kids with us. We just made so many friends, and this is before school even started. And then my dad started up a scout troop, and so I joined the Boy Scouts. I was about 11 and a half, 11 years old maybe, or 10 and a half, like that. It was fantastic. I had such a great time. And our summer camp was a blast, and we just had a great time together. Matter of fact, a kid in the troop is the father of my nephew, Mason. So he's a good guy, real good guy. But this was much years later on, by the way, not that time. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But Montgomery was a special place. We rode our bicycles around in our group of boys, and there were some girls there involved, with us also. It was some it was that time where boys would start experiencing more, getting out on their own a little bit more, be a little more wild, that kind of stuff. But I remember there was this, up near the river, there's a cemetery, and there's an old plantation house right up there next to it. At least there was. I think it's been rebuilt since then, but it was looking it was looking scary, but there's always this story about, if you could ride your bicycle on Halloween around the cemetery a certain amount of times, that the skeletons would come out of the ground and chase you. And I remember we did it one night. We did it actually, and oh my God, I never rode so fast in my life on a bicycle. But we were all over that place, and there were creeks around there. I mean, we just did so much stuff. We were so active, you know, and then I started school, and I remember very well I think it was my 8th grade class. Mr. Kuti was my teacher, you know, and he was a very, he was a flamboyant gentleman, you know, but I enjoyed his class, and he sort of looked like the bad guy. Well, the bad guy from Mandalorian now, who was in Breaking Bad. He looked just like him, but his voice was, well, he was gay, and his voice was very feminine. But he was such a nice guy, and I really enjoyed his class actually, being his class. Oh, my cats are having a crazy time here, running around after each other. But yeah, that was a tough time, and you know what? It was my dad had gotten a girlfriend also during that time, and she moved in with us with her kids, and it sort of just went downhill from there. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on there, and but you know what? It felt better because it felt more secure because of the fact that you know, we were sort of under a roof with someone who was paying attention to us. My dad paid attention to us, you know, he as much as he could. You know, he you know. It was a lot of firsts during that time, you know, and it sort of came together. But then he moved us, you know, when he split up from his girlfriend, he moved us back to Colfax, actually, or to Colfax, and where he worked at the car dealership there. Because, like I said, he was a sales manager. He was a really good salesman, actually. And so we moved to Colfax. And we lived in this trailer house on the side of highway, I think it's Highway 71. But that was a hard time. That was a very hard time. We were very isolated there. We'd go to school, you know, and come back home, and we were very much isolated. He was spending a lot more time working. He was damaged. He was hurting. He was in a depression. He was very violent, very confrontational, and there's a lot of things that happened that just, you know, violence-wise, you know, I mean, nothing perverted, but just angry, you know. But he met my stepmom again. They knew each other from high school and stuff, but he met her, and that changed everything for us. That put us inside of a stable home. They got married. It was just the happiest day, not just for him, but for us, because we finally found some stability after maybe a year and a half, you know. And yeah, that changed everything for us and changed our life. It changed our entire life, you know. We found a home that we had lost, you know. And it was ups and downs because, you know, suddenly there were seven, you know, kids, 7 teenagers in the same house that was only made for maximum 5 people, 6 people, you know. Well, we made it work, though. We made it work, and it's still working this very day. My mom, she's a great woman, and I really appreciate that time in my life. That time, because I mean, we had a blast on the farm. I spent as much time outside as I could. I was every day outside. Matter of fact, I would wear BDUs out, going for a while. I'd come from school, do my homework, do chores, whatever, and just head straight out. And this was like a daily thing. The weekends I was always going, or I was with my buddy Jimmy, you know, on the lake, you know, later on. Yeah, I just spent all the time I could outside, camping and hunting and this kind of stuff, and trapping and fishing, and just, it was such a great time, until the fumes kicked in, and that was mostly my senior year, I guess, where I'd always been interested in girls, but when I really actually met somebody, you know. But yeah, I look at those times and I learned a lot in my life, and I'm really thankful for that time in my life. And I wish my kids could enjoy, you know, instead of being here in Europe, we could have raised them in America, raised them in the country, doing country people stuff, you know, fishing and hunting and this kind of stuff. But I'm also thankful for where they're at now too. I mean, they're in their lives and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. It was a hard time for me, that junior high, but when I got in high school, it all changed and got more stable. And I'm just thankful to have a good family. You know, my dad made some good decisions there, and in the long run, it all worked out for everybody. You know, we all did much better. You know, but anyway, I want to thank you for coming in today, watching my video. I appreciate you give it a like and a thumbs up. and I'll see you again soon.